Turns out, he's an aerospace engineer at NASA and is now my fiancé. What's a story your friend told which you initially thought was bullshit, but turned out to be true? My great-granddad was in the British Navy in World War II. A bomb dropped by the Germans landed on their ship but didn't detonate, so my granddad and his friend ran towards it and hurled it off the ship where it exploded underwater. They figured that they were going to die anyway if it exploded, so why not try and save as many as possible in the process. This story went on for years and years and nobody quite believed him. They would all laugh and thought it was just a war hero's exaggerated tale, until one day he pulled out his war medals and a letter from his captain stating what he had done for the men on that ship that day. Nobody second-guessed his stories ever again. I miss him a lot. My friend in high school told me he was banging the new driver's ed teacher. I didn't believe him until she was arrested. At a party in 2008 or 2009, a random guy who apparently had a cousin who worked in Hollywood told me he knew a lot of celebrity secrets. I didn't really believe him and asked, like what? And he told me Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes' marriage was a sham, and they had a contract to stay married for 5 years. I thought it was total bullshit and he just wanted attention at the party. But then they divorced after 5 years and reached an agreement only a few days after filing. I wondered if there was something to what he said. In 9th grade, during the middle of our teenage angst, a friend in our clique was bragging about banging this pretty hot chick. No one believed him until we all found out she had gotten pregnant. My best friend in college was a non-traditional, way older, student who said she used to be an onstage go-go dancer for Rob Zombie. She's super nice and has a lot of stories like this, working in a strip club in LA and being paid to pee on a young John Turturro, working as Sasha Mitchell's nanny and talking to police during the domestic charges. I didn't believe most of the stories until we were hanging out one night and Rob Zombie walked in the side door without knocking holding a gift, an old Super Nintendo he found at a garage sale. Back in elementary school, a chubby friend told our group that he could do a backflip on his trampoline. Of course, no one believed him as he was one of the most unathletic dudes in the school, or so it seemed. We went to his house after school and hit 6 in a row before jumping off the trampoline and spraining his ankle. He went from 0 to 100 to 0 real quick. When we first met in high school, my husband told me that he slept in a closet under the stairs in his basement. Thought he was just exaggerating until we went over and saw his bedroom complete with his name on the closet door. My friend is a pirate. Like, legit jumped from one boat onto another to start a fight and has piracy on his record. My college housemate came out of his bedroom looking like he had been through the ringer early one morning after we moved into a new place. He told me he had sleepwalked, woke up to a gun in his face at 3 a.m., ran the wrong direction, and ended up almost at Walmart, 2.6 miles according to Google Maps, before a guy came out of his house who called his police officer brother-in-law. The police officer drove us home. I didn't believe he had made it that far, but I drove to Walmart later and saw a house that was the exact description my roommate had given me. Then throughout the day both the cop and the homeowner came to check on him. He has a history with sleepwalking but not 2 miles. I went out on Halloween a couple of years ago to a bar. My one friend came back from the washroom and nonchalantly mentions that there's an Australian orgy going on in the washroom. I didn't believe him, so I went in to look. There were about 8 guys all with a thick Australian accent boning on the bathroom floor. This was in Toronto and not in a gay bar. He claimed that Bluetooth technology was named after a 10th century king, King Harald Bluetooth Gormson. The king united Denmark and Norway, just like the wireless technology united computers and cell phones. I had a friend that lied about pretty much everything. He talked about how he modded his PS1 to make Lara Croft naked. He claimed to have ollied 7 stairs on a skateboard while wearing boots when he was a freshman in high school. Bragged about a bunch of girls he made out with that were just absolutely out of his league. We were the awkward Star Wars nerds and he was talking about cheerleaders. This was like the late 90s when our obsession with those movies absolutely not in fashion. He told us he had a working Simpsons arcade cabinet in his garage. Said he had family members in the mafia because he had an Italian last name and was from Jersey. One day he invites us over to his house to hang out for the afternoon. Cranks up the PS1 and I'm like, let's see some Lara Croft titties, sir. He says that's another PlayStation that his cousin was borrowing or something. I figured, fuck it, I can now call him out on some real bullshit he was spouting. Asked him to see the Simpsons arcade cabinet and he took us to the garage, and that motherfucker had a working Simpsons arcade cabinet in his garage. One of my friends always liked to exaggerate. He once told me he just made like $10,000 from penny stock. I brushed it off as bullshit until the next day he shows up with a used boat. We lived close to a few lakes, so that was a fun summer. That his dad had 40 guitars. This is when I was in high school and everyone was scrounging up money to start a band. Called bullshit, went over to his house after school, and holy fuck. And that's how I ended up playing bass in a shitty high school band. The drummer knew every Korn song but not much else. The guitarist knew Hotel California but not much else. And I knew the bass line from the Cake version of I Will Survive. Yeah, this did not last past summer. That he was recruited to play football at Notre Dame. He was from a very small area. I called BS, and was proven wrong. After looking into it, he held a lot of offers, just didn't have the grades. Had a friend tell me he was going to Cedar Point for a weekend, ended up being gone for a few months. When he gets back, he casual tells me he was run over by a semi at the camping grounds they were staying at. My mom swore up and down that she did coke/partied with Aerosmith regularly. For years and years, she told me the stories about being a groupie and I just didn't buy it. Don't know why, because she lived in the valley and was a major partier. One day we see Joe Perry at the Ritz in LA. He fucking remembered her as soon as she said her name. I'm still not over it. I worked in a lawyer's office when I finished school, 20 or so years ago now. Really bonded with this one guy who was as low in the pecking order as I was. I think he was some kind of office supply person, whereas I was just the girl that opened the mail. We'd go to the pub for lunch every day, get a nice little buzz going and just talk about random stuff, except he would always change the subject when I asked about his life before the office. He was a smart guy, really sharp and funny, and I always wanted to know how he ended up ordering post-it notes for a small-time firm of solicitors in Middle England. One lunchtime, he had a couple more beers than usual and started to tell me this story about how he hadn't always been known by the name he was using, that in actual fact he was on the run. Because his dad was a big-time recreational drug manufacturer and he used to work for him as a dealer, and that one day a few years before I met him they had been raided by the police. His dad went to prison for a while, and they didn't catch my friend because he had long, flowing hair at the time, and the team that had them under surveillance thought he was a girl. I laughed it off, figured he was just saying it to impress me or something, didn't mention it again. A couple of weeks later, we're at his place. He puts the TV on, grabs a VHS tape off the shelf and tells me to watch. It's a recording of a report from the national news about his dad, and they show a bit of the surveillance footage of the mysterious girl who is 100% unmistakably actually my guy from work. All he did was cut his hair and get a job with a load of criminal lawyers. Talk about hiding in plain sight. Two of my friends shared a story about the times that both got drunk and joined the Communist Party of Wales, and the Communist Party of Croatia respectively. I thought they were both trolling me until they showed me the proof. I both want to, and never want to go out drinking with them again. A kid in grade 4 said he had all 3 Egyptian god cards from Yu-Gi-Oh!, though he was lying until he brought them to school one day. From that day on he became a legend. I had a high school/college friend who was normally a good dude but had anger problems when he drank. Call him Julius. His girlfriend cheated on him and left him for one of his other really close friends. Call him Mark. A couple of weeks later, Julius was at a party. He got drunk and wandered off. Mark's car was parked a few blocks away from that party and was found vandalized and broken into. Julius swears up and down he didn't do it. I said I believed him but was really skeptical. Just seemed like something he'd do when drunk, and it was a lot of coincidence. Police talked to him a couple of times and Julius is in the process of lawyering up. Next weekend comes and there are several more vandalized/burgled cars in the same neighborhood, and they caught the guy on video doing it. Definitely not Julius. I honestly couldn't believe he didn't do it, but he was telling the truth. My friend in high school said she was on a Smashing Pumpkins album cover when she was little. I didn't believe her, but she was a dead ringer for the girl on the left, wearing wings, on the cover of Siamese Dream. so I figured she just said that to be cool / because things were infinitely harder to prove / disprove before we had Google. Met her parents later, they confirmed it. I worked with a guy who had insane stories about his super hot boyfriend, his rich uncle who lived in Texas, and his frequent trips to go see his favorite football team. I always kinda indulged the guy. I figured we worked at a shitty chain grocery store cashiering and he had nothing better to do at work than fantasize about a better life. Until he came in off shift with said super hot boyfriend and showed me selfies they took from the pro football game they'd gone to a week earlier. Dude was really living his best life. That his uncle worked for big tech company and had access to all the latest tech. Though he was bullied until I went round his house and his uncle was there showing off the latest console months before it was due to hit the market. A man I met told me he works with rockets. Thought he was just lying and trying to impress / catfish me. Turns out, he's an aerospace engineer at NASA and is now my fiancé. One time some friends and I were in the cinema. Well, one of my friends went to the bathroom and when he came back, he told us that super hot girls just asked him for his Instagram. We, not being the best looking group of guys, did not believe him. Well, after the movie ended and we went for some food, he got 3 girls asking to follow him on Instagram. Since that day he thinks he's a model. 9/11, a coworker told me a plane just hit the World Trade Center. I said no way, he said he just heard it on the radio. I still didn't believe it. They turned on the TV and I saw the building burning and the second plane hit. Before that, I thought it was too crazy. Sad day. I went through a breakup one time and kinda went crazy. I took all my money out of the bank, bought enough supplies to last me a good while, and disappeared into the mountains of Georgia. When a sophomore year of college came around, I changed from a psych major to a biology major because I had lived out there for 2 months. No one believed me until my dad was visiting my dorm and thanked me for all the deer meat I had given him when I came back. I was working at Starbucks in Los Angeles and was in the back room doing dishes. It was about 15 minutes before close. My friend and coworker pokes her head around the corner and says, "Can you come to ring up Han Solo? I closed my register already." I didn't know what she meant until I walk out front and see Harrison Ford standing in front of my register. I was a huge Star Wars nerd at the time. My brother once claimed his friend was one of some 41's band members' cousins. I didn't believe him until I happened to catch an interview with another one of the band members' sisters on MTV whom I recognized as one of our neighbors. Turns out they used to practice in a garage across the street from us. My boyfriend was half Chinese and told me his Chinese grandparents kept entirely black chickens with black flesh. I showed him Stardew Valley and it reminded him of it, and I thought no, surely not. But I researched it and yes, entirely black mother cluckers do indeed exist. Another way around. I was on a charter boat fishing, and on the way back I finally got cell service and decided to check the news. Prince had died. I told my friends on the boat who were fairly drunk and one of them would simply not believe me. He even bet me $100 that Prince would still be alive when we got to dock. I wouldn't take his money due to his state. My favorite was when he finally read the news for himself and solemnly stated but he was so little. A friend told me his half-sister is now a porn star / escort and his dad's ex-fiancée, her mom, stole $170,000 in lottery winnings and ran away with the money. I didn't believe him for years until I went on vacation with his fam and his mother got drunk and went on about how John's old woman and kid were a bunch of crazies. Wait till you hear this. As she went on about his first kid being a porn star and his ex stole over $150,000 worth of lottery money and ran off. I believe almost 100% of what comes out of my buddy's mouth. Thank you for watching Reddit Space. Please subscribe if you love these Reddit stories.